Welcome to a much more
I want to make a move.
refined,
I want to perform their favorite song.
poised, and pleasant.
But you know they love the suit.
What song? Yeah, that song.
Yo, Drake, my brother, I think you're not reading the room here. You just went through one of the most horrifying rap battles of life. I do kind of look at Drake like, bad timing again.
I study
Horrifying rap battles.
for a living.
The judge
Study rap battles for a living.
Lobries and Gentlegrams in today's episode of Lobry in Gentleland, in a world where one wonderful warrior won and whacked out the mural of a monotonous maple leaf moronic manufactured mob boss. Maybe you know him as the Marilyn Monroe v. Ho, who cackled in court after getting creatively crushed in a casket in the Canadian snow. The man spent ages studying rap battles for a living, giving a spinning to the block of any lyrical op beginning the dissing. But Mrs. Drizzler was missing a very big key point. You don't tell the cops after your operation's destroyed. You don't rat out the rappers who rummage through your reputation, diverting to legal defense because you perceive penmanship as defamation. The judge today sided with hip-hop music, marking more memories of Marilyn Monroe v. Ho looking stupid. This is a historic moment for hip-hop and freedom of speech, so let's air it all out like towel sheets on the beach, but please squeeze into the like and subscribe keys like hives to bees.
I study
Rapaholics.
for a living.
Now, Lobries and Gentlegrams, this is a day to celebrate. I don't even know if I could call you guys Lobries and Gentlegrams anymore. First, we had the rap battle studier,
I study rap battles for a living.
who thought he could go up against King Kung Fu Kenny, and when he lost, he became Labriana, the Marilyn Monroe v. Ho, the defamation Don Drizzler.
Spicy.
But now he's officially lost his second battle, this time in court. He went from manufactured mob boss to manufactured rap battle studier to manufactured professional courthouse Karen victim. And look what it got him. All that crying about the bots, the fake streams on Not Like Us, the big conspiracy from Kendrick's team and UMG to destroy the boy that everyone was involved in. Rock Nation, Jay-Z, the Super Bowl. They were all trying to tear Drake down. The Grammy Awards, Taylor Swift, Lucy and Grange high-fiving with Dr. Dre.
I study
Lucy and Grange.
for a living.
The OV hoes over the past 15 months have morphed into deranged tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, believing that Drake was about to press some big red button on the entire industry and explode it from the ground up.
You know what it is, man. Fuck all y'all, man. For real, man. I see y'all boys outside when I see y'all, man. For real, man. Spicy.
But would you look at what just happened, Lobries and Gentlegrams? Freedom of speech was on the line. Rap battles were on the line. Creative expression was on the line. Diss records on the line. Everything. Because Labriana couldn't just swallow his pride, take his L, disappear for a couple years, and come back with some good music and make everyone forget about the terror that the tiny Tupac twin had taunted the Toronto Tough Talker with. Now we're going to break down this entire situation, everything the judge has said, and why they dismissed the case. But first, I want to emphasize the magnitude as to why this is such a catastrophic L, possibly the biggest one that Drake has ever faced.
I study for a living.
About a year ago today, on the week that Kendrick released GNX, Drake had released two petitions against UMG, Universal Music Group, the label that signed both him and Kendrick Lamar, and Spotify and iHeartMedia. This was a pre-action petition, meaning that Drake was just trying to test the waters on whether or not there was enough evidence for him to build a case. Months before this happened, in around June or July of 2024, about a month after the beef between Drake and Kendrick had ended, Pusha T and his brother Malice were gearing up to drop their project, their Clips project, under UMG. Pusha T and...
Just too good.
Pusha T and...
It's just too good.
You know the song Chains and Whips on that album with Kendrick Lamar? Well, UMG was so worried that Drake was about to file a lawsuit against them, or they were so worried that they were about to ruin their relationship with Drake over the fact that Not Like Us was now the biggest song of that summer, that they initially told Pusha T, hey, we like your whole album, except that one Kendrick Lamar verse. You cannot right now be standing next to Kendrick Lamar, not on a song that's released under our label. Either delete the song, or your album is not coming out. So Pusha T said, forget it. I'm not going to be censored because you guys are scared of Drake. I'm going to pay a sum of over 7 figures to buy myself out of my contract and go on and sign an independent distribution deal with Jay-Z's Roc Nation label. Around the same time, Jay-Z's Roc Nation label had picked Kendrick Lamar to be the halftime performer at the Super Bowl, and everyone had the massive question, will he perform?
Yeah, that song.
A lot of people thought at the time Drake was filing this petition, this lawsuit against UMG as a way to scare them from licensing Not Like Us for the Super Bowl. AKA, if UMG says we own the rights to distribute Not Like Us, and Kendrick, we are not allowing you to perform it on this massive stage where 100+ million people will be watching, then you can't perform it. And that saves Drake a little bit of reputational harm, right? Because obviously the Super Bowl hosts a wide cast of eyeballs that probably weren't keeping up with the rap battle. So if they hear this Not Like Us record on that stage for the first time, well, now you have a whole new crop of individuals throughout America who believe that Kendrick won a rap battle and Drake is potentially a PDF, allegedly. Even 50 Cent, when he was defending Drake, he said that he believed the lawsuit was filed because Drake was trying to stop that song from being played on the Super Bowl stage.
I'd never seen that before. I've never seen somebody sue because of what you said. I thought that was Drake's team trying to prevent the Super Bowl from doing more damage. Because if you sue Apple and you sue the Universal Music Group during the period where Apple was over the music at the Super Bowl halftime, if its attorneys reached out to corporate at the NFL and said, we have this issue over this song, it's already a pending case. We don't want you guys to allow that to air and then you be a part of the damages.
But it didn't work. The pre-action petition, which was filed on the week the GNX released, later turned into a lawsuit about a month before the Super Bowl in January. Spotify and iHeartMedia were removed as defendants, but UMG was in the barrel of Drake's scope, if that's the expression, with a highly uncredible amount of evidence, if that's an expression. I don't think it is, but Drake had no evidence, is what I'm trying to say. And with the crappy sources he was capable of pulling together, he tried to accuse UMG of A, defaming him by simply releasing the song and the music video and the album cover art, and B, deploying illegal tactics in the music industry to make the song a manufactured massive hit.
Spicy.
AKA, he accused UMG, of course, of putting bots on Spotify to make the song look like it got streamed way more than it did, and he thinks they paid iHeartMedia under the table to overplay the song on radio. Now, we broke down this lawsuit multiple times on the channel, so if you guys remember, if you were there with me as we were breaking it down in the trenches, you probably remember what Drake's sources were to try and show the judge, hey, UMG was using bots on this Kendrick Lamar Not Like Us song. Do you remember the sources he used? His sources that made him believe that Kendrick Lamar used bots was some anonymous kid who hopped on DJ Akademiks' live stream and said that he was paid by one of Kendrick's team members, Anthony Saleh. This led to the federal government seizing Anthony Saleh's phone.
When the song first dropped, it wasn't him. I'm not going to say he reached out to me himself because obviously he didn't. It was definitely somebody from management. They wanted me to do 30 million early because obviously it was going to be a hit song either way. I like the song.
Who reached out to you on behalf of Kendrick?
I have payment proof. It's Anthony Saleh. That's who paid me. Not saying I was in direct contact with him. That's just the name that was on the account that I got paid by.
Now, the signs were there all along. We should have known that UMG knew that this thing would get thrown out, it would be put in the trash, because with all those scare tactics Drake was trying to implement before Kendrick went on that Super Bowl stage to try and stop Kendrick and UMG from allowing Not Like Us to be performed at that halftime show, UMG gave a big middle finger to Drake. Kendrick gave an even bigger middle finger to Drake and not only performed Not Like Us, but teased it multiple times throughout his performance, even referencing Drake's lawsuit himself, saying, I want to play their favorite song, but I know they love to sue.
But you know they love to sue.
Kendrick then went on to go do a stadium tour, something Drake has never done, performing that song every single night in front of venues fitting 50 to 80,000 plus people every night. And don't forget, he did 2 nights in a row in Drake's hometown of Toronto. And all the while Kendrick is on this victory lap, Lucien Grange, the CEO of Universal Music Group, high-fiving Dr. Dre as Kendrick goes up to win 5 Grammy Awards for this very song that Drake is suing the record label over. Drake himself is out here teasing a big red button online, saying that he's going to win Game 2, all the while dropping hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on legal fees and private investigators to go track down people from Kendrick's team, like Kojo, who Drake believed deployed all the bots on Not Like Us. He also issued a 50-plus page document to the judge asking for information on dozens of irrational things, like any knowledge UMG had about Kendrick potentially facing assault allegations in the past, like Drake had alleged on his diss track Family Matters, any relation UMG knew of between Kendrick Lamar and Dave Free and Kendrick's children. Drake wanted all the recording contracts that UMG had between them and Kendrick Lamar to try and understand what incentive UMG would possibly have to make Not Like Us such a massive hit. He couldn't fathom the fact that it was indeed the people who chose the winner of that beef and made Not Like Us naturally the hit that it was.
I want to perform their favorite song.
So instead, he compromised the future of rap battles, of diss records, of an artist's ability to say what they want in their music, have creative freedom without fearing that they'd face legal repercussion, and destroyed all that under the guise of trying to save the industry from the wicked tactics of the record label. That was really the excuse that Drake gave when he was questioned about this lawsuit. He said he was trying to make UMG's building a safer space for artists in the future. But once he realized he wasn't safe from Kendrick performing that monster of a record on the Super Bowl stage, the narrative shifted from "I'm here to save the industry" to "I'm here to blow up the industry."
Spicy.
I'm here to press the red button and expose that Kendrick Lamar and all of your favorite artists have been using bots on all of their music. And this entire game is one big manufactured plot controlled and puppeteered by the record label. You got these mysterious Iceman episodes with Pinocchio costumes meant to represent puppets of the industry that were chasing Drake down. You had music videos with hundreds of firearms pointing at Drake, acting like he's this one big victim of this massive plot to eliminate the artist that's been keeping the lights on at Universal Music Group. He mentioned this in the lawsuit as well. Right when you open up that initial document that he filed over to the judge, it says that UMG and Drake were due for contract renegotiations in 2025. Drake thought he deserved a certain amount. UMG thought Drake deserved less. So as a result, they went and destroyed his reputation by making Not Like Us a fabricated, fake, much bigger hit on the charts than it actually was in real life. The problem was that even if this was the case and UMG was doing all this illegal shady stuff behind the scenes with all the bots, the only way that Drake would be able to crack that evidence and to go digging through UMG's documents and finding everything he needs to prove that there was some shady tactics going on involving Not Like Us is he would first have to prove to the judge that this was in fact truly defamation. And you know why he can't prove that? Because everything that Kendrick called him on Not Like Us was something Drake asked for himself on a diss record that released 2 weeks before on Tailor-Made Freestyle while they were going back and forth. Actually, forget that, not while they were going back and forth. Before Kendrick ever put out a diss record, Drake drops Tailor-Made Freestyle, and while using AI Tupac vocals, rapping from Tupac's perspective to Kendrick, he said, "Talk about Drake liking young girls, that's a gift for me."
I study
Drake liking young girls
for a living.
And what did Kendrick do just about 2 weeks later? Exactly that. How can it be defamation when A, it was part of a rap battle you agreed to participate in, and B, in that rap battle you already requested that Kendrick touched on this subject? And if it's not defamation, then your entire case crumbles and you cannot find that big red button in UMG's paperwork to prove that there was any botting going on. But I am going to drop a video in the next few days because Akademiks has been getting harassed, or I don't know what you'd call it, surrounded by a private investigator who claims that Drake has been using bots on his music. Akademiks didn't know if this was a private investigator sent from UMG, sent from Rock Nation in relation to the Megan Thee Stallion defamation lawsuit that she's filing against another blogger. We're going to touch on that in a video for another day. I just thought it was significant that this private investigator openly said on a phone call to one of Akademiks' little minions, Grand Wizard Chat Guy, that they have word that Drake uses bots on his music. Something we already pretty much knew, but was never confirmed, and was of course one of the very big things that Drake was accusing Kendrick Lamar and UMG of using to try to tear Drake down.
And talk about these campaigns.
Wait, I'm being accused of this too. Listen, I gotta call Drake. They think that Drake bots and Steak and Kick pay people to slander people.
Regardless of however much UMG and Kendrick Lamar tore Drake down, no one in history has ever tore Drake down more than this judge just did today. After hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on private investigators and lawyers trying to concoct these grand conspiracy lawsuits, trying to redeem Drake's name because he couldn't accept the fact that he lost a rap battle that he studies for a living.
I study rap battles for a living.
The judge said enough is enough. UMG requested that this entire case gets thrown in the trash, and the judge said, you know what, I don't care if Drake spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash on legal fees to clean the ash of his damaged reputation. I don't care what he thinks is defamation. The Toronto tough talking train has left the station, and your big courthouse case is facing cremation. The judge
Studies rap battles for a living.
That's right, Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams. Today should be a holiday, and oh boy, if Kendrick dropped music today, that would be the biggest W he could ever take. Now, I say today, but it might be yesterday's news already by the time I post this. I'm going out tonight and getting hammered to celebrate this W, alright? So maybe when I come home, I'll stay up all night editing it to make sure that first thing in the morning you guys can hear about this glorious L that La Brianna just took, and the historic moment this is for freedom of speech and for hip-hop. So let's dive into everything the judge has said. But first, Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, unlike Drake, a bunch of you guys have been telling me you've been Anita Max winning some free cash from playing mobile games. So I want to put all you guys on to something that almost seems too good to be true. All right, let me give you a little glimpse into my life. When I'm not making this content for you guys, I have a disgusting addiction to my phone. My daily screen time is higher than Drake on that album cover, higher than Snoop off the edibles. So if you guys suffer that same addiction as me, I want to put you onto something that's going to change your life. FreeCash.com is a program that partners with mobile games that are looking for more users to play their games, and they will literally pay you to play their games for free. All you got to do is sign up using the QR code you see on the screen or using the link in the description of this video. You make an account super easy. All you got to do is put in your email, create a password, verify your email, and then you're good to go. And they got a bunch of games. My favorite is the Monopoly Go because we're always on the go trying to make some money. Once you make an account, you just click the game you want to play, follow the directions that they give you. The directions are super easy. Usually you just got to download the game and start playing. So it's about time you put that phone addiction to good use. Again, use the QR code you see on the screen or the link in my description. Create an account and you could start making more than $150 just to play a game on your phone. So on Thursday, October 9th, Jeanette A. Vargas, the judge on the case for UMG against Drake, has filed a letter granting UMG's motion to dismiss the lawsuit. What that means is Drake filed this defamation case. UMG said, hey, judge, this case is a bunch of BS. He doesn't have the right sources. He doesn't have any sources. Let's throw this case out. Here's a bunch of reasons why we should throw this case out. What do you think? It took the judge a couple months, but finally the judge said, you're right, UMG. Let's throw this case in the frickin' trash.
I study
the frickin' trash
for a living.
So what did this letter say? Well, it starts off. This case arises from perhaps the most infamous rap battle in the genre's history, the vitriolic war of words that erupted between superstar recording artists Aubrey Drake Graham and King Kung Fu Kenny Lamar Duckworth in the spring of 2024. Over the course of 16 days, the two artists released 8 so-called diss tracks with increasingly heated rhetoric, loaded accusations, and violent imagery. The penultimate song of this feud, Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar, dealt the metaphorical killing blow. The song contains lyrics explicitly accusing Drake of being a PDF, set to a catchy beat and propulsive bassline. Not Like Us went on to become a cultural sensation, achieving immense commercial success and critical acclaim. You could tell the judge definitely liked this song. Both Drake and Kendrick Lamar have recording contracts with the defendant of this lawsuit, UMG Records. Drake alleges that UMG intentionally published and promoted Not Like Us while knowing that the song's insinuations that he had S relations with minors were false and defamatory. Drake has brought this action against UMG for defamation, harassment in the second degree, and violation of Section 349 of the New York General Business Law. AKA Drake not only accused UMG of defaming him by releasing the song, but Drake also claimed he got harassed because of the song, and that UMG violated New York business law by, again, using payola and fake streams to boost the numbers of Not Like Us. The judge continues, because the court concludes that the allegedly defamatory statements in Not Like Us are non-actionable opinion, the motion to dismiss is granted.
It's probably A minor.
AKA, the judge decided that the statements being called defamatory in the song Not Like Us are actually just opinions, not something you can sue over. So the judge is agreeing to UMG's request to throw the case out. And I better find your lawsuit, and I better rip it apart. I better hear Not Like Us, and I better break your heart. Lobbies and gentlegrams, we drank a little too much tonight to celebrate, so if you hear some craziness, I am not a lawyer, alright? When we break down this case, I'm making sure it's all facts, but at the same time, I'm not a lawyer, so don't hold me liable to nothing, alright? We're just having fun here. This is a celebratory moment. Let's go through this document, alright? So, the wonderful judge said, legal standards. To survive a motion to dismiss, a complaint must contain sufficient factual matter, except that is true, to state a claim to relief that is plausible on its face. Now you might be wondering, what does that mean? It means, in simple terms, that if someone wants their lawsuit to keep going and not be thrown out right away, their complaint has to include enough clear facts that, if assumed to be true, make it reasonable to believe they could win under the law. The court doesn't decide if they're right yet, just whether the claim seems believable and legally valid, not vague or just guesses. If the facts make sense and support a real legal claim, the case can continue. If not, it can be dismissed early, which is what happened in this case. A plaintiff may not simply allege facts that are consistent with liability. The complaint must, quote-unquote, nudge plaintiff's claims across the line from conceivable to plausible. That means that the person suing can't just state facts that could suggest the other side is responsible. They have to show enough detail to make it reasonably believable that the other side actually is responsible. In other words, their claim of defamation has to seem plausible, not just possible or a guess. And remember what we're dealing here with. The basis of Drake's lawsuit is that this was defamation because the words, the lyrics in Not Like Us were defamatory against Drake's reputation and who he is as a character. That's what he had to prove before he could prove anything else within this lawsuit. The bots, the harassment claims, anything else. He first had to prove that it was really defamation in that song. But think about the context of what we're dealing with. A rap battle.
I study rap battles for a living.
How is this defamation when Drake agreed to this rap battle and egged Kendrick on to talk about this specific topic? The judge continues, when ruling on a motion to dismiss under Rule 12b-6, the court accepts as true all well-pleaded allegations and draws all reasonable inferences in favor of the non-moving party. This means that when the court is deciding whether to dismiss a case, it will assume that all the properly stated facts in the complaint in the lawsuit are true and will interpret any reasonable conclusions in the way that favors the person who filed the lawsuit, aka Drake, not the one who is asking to dismiss it. In this case, that would be UMG. So the judge, when looking at all this evidence, was technically on Drake's side, right? Like, they were having Drake's back. Like, all right, let's really approach this from a perspective of you feel hurt right now. You feel defamed. Let me look at all the aspects of the case, and I'll come back with a judgment that's really fair to whatever you're telling me in your lawsuit. And the judge continues, the court may also consider, quote unquote, documents incorporated in the complaint by reference and matters of which judicial notice may be taken. Judicial notice is appropriate when a matter is not subject to reasonable dispute because it is, quote unquote, generally known within the trial's court territorial jurisdiction or can be accurately and readily determined from sources whose accuracy cannot reasonably be questioned. This means, in simple terms, the court can also look at documents that are directly mentioned in the lawsuit and certain facts that are clearly true and not arguable. And my Canadian accent has a very hard time at pronouncing this, but these are called judicially noticeable facts. Things that are either well known in that area or can be easily confirmed from trusted, accurate sources. All in all, the judge is taking in all the sources that Drake's lawsuit had stated and making sure when she makes her decision, it's aligned with the story Drake is telling as accurately as possible. All the facts that Drake is bringing within his lawsuit. And they continue with some background on the case. The following background is largely taken from the allegations in the amended complaint, aka the second lawsuit Drake filed, because he filed one in January, then he filed a second one in April. It had some sources taken out and some new sources he put into the lawsuit. The main one that he took out was the botting allegations from the live stream with Akademiks, where that anonymous user went on and claimed that Anthony Soleil, someone from Kendrick's team, had botted a bunch of streams from Not Like Us, and instead he took out that allegation and put in some new ones from random people on Twitter like Poetic Flacco, who had just claimed that, the industry is always using bots. There was no direct factual source in Drake's lawsuit that Kendrick Lamar was 100% using bots, and that's why he was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to subpoena people from Kendrick's team to try and find information which can prove this thing, but the judge dismissed it all, and they continue. The following background is largely taken from the allegations made in the new lawsuit, which are assumed true for the purposes of this motion. Additionally, defendant requests the court take judicial notice of certain extrinsic evidence pursuant to Rule 201 of the Federal Rules of Evidence. These exhibits include the lyrics of the songs released as part of Drake and Kendrick Lamar's rap battle. The dates on which these songs were released and the lyrics of these songs are not reasonably subject to dispute, and the songs themselves, with one exception, all referenced in the amended complaint, aka the new lawsuit. What this means is basically the defendant, aka the person or group being sued, UMG, is asking the court to look at some outside evidence, aka the grander context of the entire situation, which they're allowed to do if it's something that can't really be argued about. In this case, the outside evidence is the lyrics and release dates of songs from the rap battle between Drake and Kendrick Lamar, because of course Drake is only suing over Not Like Us. The court can consider these details because the song lyrics and release dates are public facts. They're easy to prove and not something that can be easily disagreed upon. The judge then references a prior lawsuit from 2019, which is Pickett versus Migos Touring Inc. I'm not sure if that's like the Migos Touring Group or what that is, but they're basically saying this kind of evidence has been accepted in court before, probably using the precedent of rap lyrics in an actual lawsuit. Plus, they're emphasizing most of the diss songs have already been mentioned in Drake's lawsuit itself, so it makes sense for the judge to consider them. They have to consider them, right? Because in order to prove that this was defamation, you have to look at it in the grander context of where these words, these defamatory, horrible, mean words were actually stated, right? And it was stated in the context of a rap battle. The judge is basically emphasizing, we're taking that into account, buddy, little La Brianna. When we look at this whole thing, we're making sure we realize and recognize that this was a rap battle.
I study rap battles for a living.
So then the judge is like, let's get to the facts, all right? They have a little note in the letter they drafted that says factual allegations. They're stating all the facts. And the facts are, Drake is a prominent recording artist and songwriter, among other public-facing endeavors. Drake has had a successful music career under UMG for at least 20 years. UMG uses its brands and imprints or labels to provide its music artists with the means to create, promote, and distribute their music commercially. Defendant, through Universal Music Group Publishing, holds exclusive publishing and distribution rights to Drake's music as well as that of artist Kendrick Lamar, aka the person Drake is suing, UMG. Under their company, they hold exclusive publishing and distribution rights to both Drake and Kendrick's music. On April 19th, 2024, Drake released a diss track directed at Kendrick Lamar called Push-Ups. I have a whole breakdown of Push-Ups if you guys want to check it out. Maybe I'll leave it in the link in the description, but this is where it gets funny in the lawsuit. The judge says, in Push-Ups, Drake mocks Kendrick's height and shoe size. And they quote the lyrics, how the F you big stepping with a size 7 men's on, pipsqueak, pipe down. And they also questioned Kendrick Lamar's success. You ain't in no big three. I'm at the top of the mountain, so you tight now. Just to have this talk with your butt, I had to hike down. A few days later, Drake released Tailor-Made Freestyle, in which she used AI-generated voices of deceased rapper Tupac and of rapper Snoop Dogg to goad Kendrick. In the track, quote-unquote, Tupac and Snoop Dogg share their disappointment that Kendrick has not responded to push-ups. I told you the judge did their homework, right? They keep quoting lyrics. Kendrick, we need ya. The West Coast savior. You seem a little nervous about all this publicity. You gotta show this effing owl who's boss on the West. Drake, in his own voice, further taunts Kendrick for failing to come up with a satisfactory response, saying, I know you're in that NY apartment, you're struggling right now. I know it, in the notepad doing lyrical gymnastics, my boy.
Spicy.
Drake also surmises that Kendrick was purposefully delaying his response because artist Taylor Swift had just released a new album. They quote more lyrics from Drake's Tailor-Made Freestyle where he says, shout out to Taylor Swift, biggest gangster in the music game right now. She got the whole PG Lang on mute like that Beyonce challenge. Y'all boys quiet for the Weeknd. Kendrick fired back at Drake in Euphoria, which was released on April 30th, 2024. In the track, Kendrick claims, I make music that electrify him. You make music that pacify him. And that he would spare Drake this time, that's random acts of kindness. He accuses Drake of fabricating his claims. He raps, know you a master manipulator and habitual liar too. But don't tell no lie about me, and I won't tell truths about you. Nah, they didn't actually include that in the lawsuit, but I'm sorry. This is my favorite song by far from the rap battle, alright? Yeah, I'm out the way, I'm low, okay. The other right here is remote, okay. Anyways, the judge keeps saying, Kendrick further insults Drake's fashion sense, rapping, I hate the way you walk, the way you talk, I hate the way you dress. And then he further raps, I believe you don't like women, that's real competition, you might pop butt with them, and taunts Drake for being a coward with his responses, like, I hate the way that you sneak this, if I catch flight, it's gonna be direct.
Oh, just too good. Oh, it's just too good.
Man, the judge really did her homework in terms of the intricacies of these bars. The judge
studies rap battles for a living.
So, she continues, on May 3rd, 2024, the feud between Drake and Kendrick escalated as they lobbed increasingly vicious personal accusations at each other over the course of the day. First, Kendrick released 616 in LA. In that song, he calls Drake a quote-unquote terrible person. He accuses Drake of quote-unquote playing dirty with propaganda and raps that if Drake were street smart, that he would have caught on that his entourage is only to hustle him. Drake's next response arrived later in that day in Family Matters. Drake jabs at Kendrick's relationship with his partner, rapping, you're the black messiah wifing up a mixed queen, and hit Vanilla Cream to help out with your self-esteem. On some Bobby stuff, I want to know what Whitney need, and implies that Kendrick physically abused her. You a dog and you know it, you just play sweet. Your baby mama captions always screaming, save me. You did her dirty all your life, you're trying to make peace. Moreover, Drake calls into question whether Kendrick is the biological father of one of his children, rapping, I heard one of them little kids. Might be Dave Freeze, don't make it Dave Freeze.
Spicy.
Almost immediately after the release of Family Matters, Kendrick unleashed the scathing Meet the Grams, in which he accuses Drake of being a deadbeat father and hiding the existence of other children. Like in bars, you lied about your son, you lied about your daughter, huh? You lied about them other kids that out here hoping you come. Kendrick also alleged that Drake has gambling problems, drinking problems, pill popping and spending problems, bad with money, HOE house soliciting women problems, therapy's a lovely start. He further insinuates that Drake was a quote-unquote predator and that Drake should DIE so that all women can live with a purpose. The next day, on May 4th, 2024, Kendrick released Not Like Us. Not Like Us explicitly names Drake and his associates as PDFs. Specifically, the track contains the following lyrics, and sing it with me and sing it with the judge. In celebration of freedom of speech, say Drake, I hear you like I'm old. Not that. Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to cell block 1. To any B that talk to him and they in love, just make sure you had your little sister from him. They tell me Chubb's the only one that get your hand-me-downs and party at the party playing with his nose now. And Baka got a weird case, why is he around? Certified lover boy, come on, sing it with me now.
Oh, it's just too good. Oh, it's just too good.
Oh, lovers and gentlegrams, drop a like because I'm recording this right now. It is 3:07 a.m., alright? And we gotta celebrate the fact that these lyrics are really in a court document by the judge who is telling Drake to basically go eat PISS, alright? The judge continues, wop, 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 dot F him up, I'ma do my stuff. Why you trolling like a bee? Ain't you tired trying to strike a chord? It's probably A minor. And on May 5th, 2025, Drake responded in the Heart Part 6, the beautiful Heart Part 6, directly denying Kendrick's allegations of PDF. Like in lyrics, I never been with no one underage, but now I understand why this is the angle you really mess with. Just for clarity, I feel disgusted. I'm too respected. If I was effing on young GIRLS, I promise I'd have been arrested. I'm way too famous for the stuff you suggested. Drake is not a name you're gonna see on no S offender list. In the track, Drake further sneers that, quote unquote, this Epstein angle was the stuff I expected, and accused Kendrick Lamar of wanting to misdirect. Drake also alleges that he had planted some of the information that Kendrick had used against him. We plotted for a week and then we fed you the information. But you so thirsty you're not concerned with investigation. You gotta learn to fact check things and be less impatient. I think he's gotta change those lyrics to, we plotted for a week and then we fed you the information. I lost so bad I had to sue you for defamation. It was all off the speculation and now I'm facing career and courthouse cancellation.
Spicy.
The judge continues emphasizing the success that Not Like Us had. She says, Not Like Us was a huge commercial success. It has gained immense popularity on streaming and social media platforms. It was streamed globally more than 1.4 billion times on Spotify alone as of April 2025. On November 8th, 2024, the Recording Academy nominated Not Like Us for several Grammy Awards, and in February 2025, it won Record of the Year, and a week later, on February 9th, Kendrick performed Not Like Us live during the Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show. The performance is alleged to be the most watched Super Bowl halftime show of all time with over 133.5 million views. The judge just emphasizing the victory lap Kendrick took on here, right? But now we get to the procedural history. The plaintiff, aka Drake, brings claims of defamation, harassment in the second degree, and violation of New York General Business Law, Section 349, based upon UMG's publication and promotion of Not Like Us. The defendant, aka UMG, has filed a motion to dismiss Drake's lawsuit. On June 30th, 2025, the court heard oral argument from both parties concerning the motion to dismiss and the request for judicial notice. Plaintiff, aka Drake, contends that he was defamed when UMG decided to publish, promote, exploit, and monetize allegations that it understood were not only false, but dangerous. Aka UMG published Not Like Us even though they knew the claims in it about Drake being a PDF were false and also dangerous to his life. Drake also alleged that the recording repeatedly accused Drake of engaging in criminal acts, including PDF and or other acts that would require registering as an S offender. The lawsuit alleges that the song implies that Kendrick has heard that Drake has a predilection, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that, a predilection for underage. According to the lawsuit, the reference to Cell Block 1 is a thinly veiled threat at Drake that he should be careful that he never ends up in prison, a place where C predators are notoriously the targets of violence. The line Certified Lover Boy, Certified PDFs is a perverse reference to Drake's 2021 album Certified Lover Boy, and Drake argues that the use of the term certified communicates that Drake has been found to be a PDF. Again, Drake is trying to say that this is defamation because what Kendrick is saying is a fact. Like in Not Like Us, Kendrick is telling us Drake is factually PDF. Meanwhile, UMG is saying, no, it was all exaggeration. It was all Kendrick's opinion. It was all for the sake of the rap battle, right? So now the judge is trying to understand the context to see ultimately if the reasonable listener would believe Drake is factually a PDF by listening to Not Like Us.
I study
PDFs
for a living.
So anyways, then they go on to clarify what would constitute as actual defamation, or basically everything Drake would have needed to prove to win a defamation case under New York law, which is where the lawsuit was filed. So to make a valid defamation claim, the plaintiff, aka the person suing, aka Drake, must show, number one, that of course someone made a defamatory statement. And what is a defamatory statement? It's a harmful, false statement of fact, meaning it has to be a fact. Number two, the statement has to be about the person suing. Number three, it has to be shared with someone else. It can't just be said privately. It has to be said to a third party. Number 4, the statement made has to be false. It has to be stated like it's a fact, but it has to be false. So basically, if this case were to proceed, they would have to prove, firstly, of course, that everything Kendrick said in Not Like Us, he meant to say it as a fact, right? Like Drake is factually a PDF. But what's interesting is they would then have to go and prove that Drake being a PDF is a false claim, right? Because let's say Drake really was a PDF and Kendrick said it in Not Like Us, it's not defamation because Kendrick is just telling the truth. So imagine this lawsuit did proceed. If the judge really did say, Kendrick in Not Like Us is trying to say Drake 100% is a PDF as a statement of fact, then both UMG and Drake's legal team would have to try to duke it out in court to prove whether or not Drake is really a PDF. And this is where the lawsuit would have got insane if it kept going on. Like, UMG would have had to try and prove Drake is a PDF, and Drake's legal team would have to try and defend Drake for not being a PDF. It would have been insane in court. But anyways, the judge emphasizes that the issue in this particular defamation case is whether Not Like Us can reasonably be understood to convey as a factual matter that Drake is a PDF or that he engaged in S relations with minors. In light of the overall context in which the statements in the song were made, the court holds that the song cannot be reasonably understood to convey a factual matter that Drake is a PDF. Basically, when the judge looked at the overall context, the fact that this was a rap battle, the fact that, Drake had those bars in Tailor Made, Talk About Me Liking Young Girls, the fact that, they both willingly participated in this thing and both threw out allegations about one another with no factual proof to back it up. It was all just exaggerated hyperbole. Judging that context, the court rules that basically Not Like Us by the reasonable listener would not be interpreted as a factual manner. Now, the First Amendment protects people's rights to express ideas and opinions, meaning that opinions can't be false in a legal sense. There's no such thing as a false idea. Only statements that claim to be facts can be proven true or false. Similarly, the New York Constitution gives strong protection to opinions, meaning that they can't be the basis of a defamation lawsuit. So when someone sues for defamation, the court must figure out, of course, whether the statement is a fact, which can be defamatory. Remember when Drake said on the Hard Part 6, let's get to the facts. Or they must figure out if the statement is an opinion, which is protected under free speech laws. And of course, the courts can decide this very early on. Like, this case barely got to the discovery phase before it's now being thrown out in the trash, right? So to tell the difference between whether a statement is a fact or an opinion, the judge uses 3 main factors. Is the statement clear and specific enough to have a real meaning? Can it be proven true or false? And does the context, like the tone, the setting, and how the information is presented, make it sound more like an opinion than a fact? Here, Drake is focused on one main claim, that the song accused him of being a PDF. That's a statement with a clear meaning and something that could be proven true or false. However, even serious accusations like this can't lead to a defamation claim if they're clearly presented as an opinion and not a fact. So the judge is mainly looking at the context, how and where the statement was made, its tone, and how a reasonable person would understand it. Like we said before, the judge is asking herself, would an ordinary listener think that this was a real fact or just Kendrick's opinion? Now, the court also looks at where the allegedly defamatory statements were made. This helps decide whether a reasonable listener would take the statement as fact or opinion. In general, statements made in news programs or journalistic pieces are more likely to be taken as factual. Statements made on opinion pages, internet comment sections, or social media are more likely to be seen as personal opinions. Here, of course, the forum is a rap diss track, a music recording with a video, an album art, and this kind of setting is a lot closer to platforms like YouTube or Twitter rather than serious news reporting, right? A typical listener wouldn't expect a diss track to be fact-check journalism. They'd understand it as part of a creative, emotional, or exaggerated exchange. Then the court, of course, looks at the surrounding circumstances, and I think this is where Drake lost his footing, because the court has to take a look at the entire context, when, where, and why the statement was made. This matters because even statements that sound factual can actually be treated as opinion, depending on the situation. Of course, this song was made in a very public and intense rap battle, and courts have said that in situations like heated debates, public feuds, or personal rivalries, audiences expect fiery language, exaggeration, and insults, not calm, verified statements of facts. They also point to a previous defamation case over a rap battle that was a little less serious between Michael Rappaport and Barstool Sports, the company. In that instance, Barstool had published a diss track music video that contained insults that claimed Michael Rappaport had herpes and abused his ex. The court ruled that these were not statements of fact because they were made in the middle of a very public, bitter dispute, and that the audience would recognize them as part of that fight, not as verified claims. And I think UMG had mentioned that case when they were trying to request that this case gets thrown out. And right off the rip, once you see that that case, the Michael Rappaport case, didn't go through, you'd be stupid to not realize that Drake's case was about to go in the same direction. And the judge brings all this up just again to emphasize the fact that this kind of setting naturally signals to listeners that they are about to hear insults, exaggeration, and trash talk, not sober statements of fact. So an average listener would not reasonably believe the statements in Not Like Us are literal verified truths. Then the judge goes on to drop other examples, like in Euphoria, where Kendrick calls Drake a master manipulator, habitual liar, and a scam artist. Drake responds in Family Matters by heavily implying that Kendrick is a domestic abuser, and also raps that he heard that one of Kendrick's sons may not be biologically his. Why you never hold your son and tell him say cheese? We could have left the kids out of this, don't blame me. I heard that one of the little kids might be Dave Freeze.
Spicy.
In Meet the Grams, Kendrick takes issue with Drake involving his family members in their feud. Dear Aubrey, I know you're probably thinking I wanted to crash your party, but truthfully, I don't have a hating bone in my body. This is supposed to be a good exhibition within the game, but you effed up the moment you called out my family's name. Why'd you have to stoop so low to discredit some decent people? And in that same track, Kendrick alleged that Drake uses the weight loss drug Ozempic. Don't cut them corners like your daddy did, F what Ozempic did. Don't pay to play with them Brazilians, get a gym membership. Kendrick also insinuates that Drake knowingly hires S-offenders, grew facial hair because he understood being a beard just fit him better. He got S-offenders on OVHO that he keep on monthly allowance. Of particular relevance, in tailor-made freestyle, Drake challenged Kendrick Lamar to make the PDF accusations at issue. Using the artificially generated voice of deceased rapper Tupac, Drake goads Kendrick. We need a no-debated West Coast victory, man. Call him a B for me. Talk about him liking young girls, that's a gift from me. Heard it on the Button podcast, it's gotta be true. Damn, this judge really studies rap battles for a living. This judge
studies rap battles for a living.
And then they emphasize, it is in this context in which such lyrics as, say Drake, I hear you like I'm young, from the song must be assessed. The similarity in the wording suggests strongly that this line is a direct callback to Drake's lyrics in the prior song. Basically, what the judge is saying here, like we've been saying for almost a year now, is that not only did Drake willingly participate in this battle, so the words in Not Like Us have to be judged in the context of the battle, but you also have to take into account that Drake was asking to be called a PDF before Kendrick ever even said it. The judge continues, Drake argues that the court should ignore the songs that came before and assess Not Like Us as a singular entity. Drake argues that the average listener is not someone who is familiar with every track released as part of the rap battle before listening to the song. Because the song has achieved a level of quote-unquote cultural ubiquity far beyond the other 7 diss songs, Drake contends that the court should not consider those other tracks when assessing how the average listener of Not Like Us would perceive the allegations regarding Drake. Drake's team is basically saying Not Like Us became so successful compared to the other diss tracks that the average listener at this point of Not Like Us maybe didn't even know about the rap battle. So when you're assessing the statements made in Not Like Us and how the reasonable listener would interpret them, you can't think of, someone who followed the whole rap battle. You have to think of the average person who just casually heard Not Like Us. But the judge says there are a number of flaws with Drake's argument here. Not Like Us cannot be viewed in isolation, but must be placed in its appropriate factual context. Statements must first be viewed in their context in order for courts to determine whether a reasonable person would view them as expressing or implying any facts. Here, that factual context is the insults and trash talking that took place via these diss tracks in the days and weeks leading up to the publication of Not Like Us. The songs released during this rap battle are in dialogue with one another. They reference prior songs and then respond to insults and accusations made by the rival artists. That's such an interesting observation, and it really shows this judge really did, I'm not even saying this as a joke, studied rap battles for a living, because she really dissected the hell out of these diss records to the point where she observed the fact that this battle really did kind of follow a sequential order, and a lot of diss songs were callbacks to prior diss songs, and a lot of series of events only happened due to things said in other songs. Kind of like how when on Euphoria, Kendrick was like, let's speak on percentages, show me your splits, I'll make sure to double back with you. You were signed to one guy, signed to another guy, etc. That's a callback to the fact that on Push-Ups, the prior diss track, Drake was of course implying that Kendrick was in a bad record contract, which is ironic because in this lawsuit, he was trying to demand Kendrick's recording contract from UMG as part of evidence gathering for the case. So obviously he didn't know Kendrick splits even though he was trying to diss him on it. And then of course all the callbacks to the fact that, at first Kendrick suggested this be a friendly fade, keep it that way. And then of course Drake references the kids, and then you get Meet the Grams, or literally in Tailor Made, where Drake suggests that Kendrick talk about him liking young girls, so Kendrick ends up doing exactly that. The judge noted that you have to look at the scope of this entire battle when judging if Not Like Us in and of itself is defamatory, because a lot of these diss tracks and the subject matter within them were direct results or consequences of diss tracks that came out prior, if that makes sense, right? Like if Drake never mentioned Whitney, who knows if Kendrick would have mentioned Adonis, right? And then if Kendrick never mentioned Adonis, maybe Drake wouldn't have done the whole, Day Free being the father part, right? So it's like one thing kind of led to another, and that's why the judge emphasizes Not Like Us is the final result of all of these horrible insults snowballing. So the judge says the songs must be read together to fully assess how the general audience would perceive the statements in Not Like Us. Moreover, while Drake is correct that the intended audience for the song Not Like Us is the general public and not just a subset of rap devotees or Kendrick Lamar fans, the recordings in the rap battle were likewise released to the general public, aka all of the diss records were released to the general public, not just Not Like Us. These were not songs accessible to a select niche few, but tracks released by commercially successful artists. While Not Like Us may be the most popular of the diss tracks, the other songs were hits in their own right, with streams in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions. Additionally, it was not just Not Like Us that gained cultural ubiquity, but the rap battle did itself. In deciding this motion to dismiss, the court need not blind itself to the public attention garnered by this particular rap battle. The court takes judicial notice of the extensive mainstream media reporting that surrounded the release of Not Like Us and the associated feud between Drake and Kendrick. Accordingly, the court must consider the entire rap battle to assess whether the average listener would take Kendrick's statements as objective fact or opinion. What the judge is trying to say here is it wasn't just Not Like Us that was highly publicized to a massive audience. It was the whole rap battle in general that was highly publicized. So yes, even though they're not just judging this by, what rap fans would perceive Not Like Us to be, whether they would think it's opinion or fact, they have to look at the general public. The general public was exposed to all the diss records. They were all available on Spotify. Family Matters could have became just as big as Not Like Us if it was just as good as Not Like Us. And then you would have heard all the allegations made against Kendrick on these massive stages, on these massive platforms. It just so happened that Not Like Us became the popular track, but the entire beef was highly publicized, right? So you have to look at the entire context of this beef to truly understand whether or not Not Like Us could constitute defamation, and specifically UMG releasing the song being cause for defamation. This is what the judge is saying. The judge
studies rap battles for a living.
And now this part is crazy. The judge continues. The biggest problem with Drake's argument is that it would make the legal protection of artistic expression depend on what happens after the fact, which isn't allowed. What that means is, when Kendrick Lamar released the song Not Like Us, he had no way of knowing it would become massively popular, breaking streaming records, winning Record of the Year at the Grammys, or being performed at the Super Bowl. But Drake is basically asking the court to ignore the original context in which the song was created and instead judge it based off its later fame and big reach. The court rejects this. Whether a statement is considered a protected opinion or an actionable statement of fact can't change just because the work became popular. Free speech protections don't depend on how successful or famous something gets. Drake also argues that even if Not Like Us was protected opinion when it first released, aka the statements in the song were Kendrick Lamar's opinion, not fact, when it first came out, the republication, Drake is saying, of Not Like Us by UMG after its huge success should make the company legally responsible. But the court calls this argument illogical. If the song was protected as opinion from the start, then republishing it later doesn't turn it into a statement of fact or make the publisher liable. Reposting or distributing something doesn't change its legal nature. AKA, just because your speech becomes insanely popular, if it was an opinion and not a fact to begin with, it doesn't matter how popular it gets, it remains an opinion. And at the same time, republishing an opinionated statement, not a factual statement, like UMG did when they released the song that contained the opinionated statements of Drake having weird behavior with women. The nature of these statements don't change just because UMG put the song onto streaming platforms. It doesn't magically become a factual statement just because it went from going on SoundCloud only to now being on the Super Bowl stage. You know what I mean? And now we get to one of the most crucial factors, the tone and language of the recording. One of the strongest signs that the statements in the song Not Like Us are opinions and not facts come from the tone and language used in the song. Courts are going to look closely at the tone and the language when deciding whether a statement is actionable defamation or protected speech, aka a fact or an opinion. Then they note that Not Like Us is full of profanity, trash talk, threats of violence, and over-the-top language. These are classic signs of opinion, not fact. No reasonable listener would treat lines like, "Ain't no law boy, you ball boy, fetch Gatorade or something. Since 2009, I had this be jumping," as serious, factual reporting. Instead, it's clearly heated, lyrical, exaggerated expression. See, the judge studies rap battles for a living, and they're able to point out how Drake's argument is flawed. Drake argues that the court should look at what some listeners and media commentators said about Not Like Us. According to his lawsuit, some people online interpreted the lyrics as conveying a precise factual message, specifically an accusation that Drake is a PDF. Drake cites many posts from YouTube and Instagram claiming they show that people believed the song had exposed real truth about Drake. But legally, that doesn't matter. The question of whether a statement is fact or opinion is a legal question for the court, not something decided by public opinion or social media reactions. The key test is, would a reasonable listener hearing the song in full context believe it was stating facts about Drake? The answer, the court says, is no. The fact that some online random users like Mr. Right 8439 and ZXZ Nebula believed or repeated the accusation doesn't change the legal analysis. In today's online world, you can find someone to support almost any idea, no matter how wild or unfounded it is. That doesn't make their interpretation legally reasonable. Just because some people read a defamatory meaning into something doesn't make that interpretation legally valid. AKA Drake, just because your feelings were hurt because everyone online is making fun of you doesn't mean that Kendrick Lamar deserves to be sued over this rap battle you lost. The accusations in the diss track happened during a 7-track rap battle, a heated war of words that got major media coverage. Although accusing someone of being a PDF is obviously serious, the bigger context of a public rap feud filled with fiery language and shocking insults from both sides would lead a reasonable listener to see it as part of a lyrical battle, not factual reporting. Drake also claims that the album cover image and the music video for Not Like Us should be treated separately as defamatory, but the court rejects this too. The image, the album cover art, is directly tied to the song itself and reinforces the same overall message, which the court already found to be protected opinion. The image includes over a dozen fake S-offender markers around Drake's house. It's obviously edited and exaggerated. No reasonable person would believe law enforcement had officially labeled those homes. The video is similar. For example, it shows a caged owl, which is a symbolic way of saying Drake belongs behind bars. Not a factual claim. It depicts Kendrick Lamar playing hopscotch while singing a lyric. Another clear piece of artistic imagery, not evidence of a real event. These kinds of visuals are figurative and symbolic, not literal or factual. That means they're protected under the same First Amendment principles as the lyrics themselves. And it's insane that Drake went from battling Kendrick Lamar in a rap battle to battling the First Amendment in a court of law. Now, there is a little something interesting here. Even though the statements of pure opinion can't be the basis of a defamation lawsuit, a different type of statement called mixed opinion can be. This kind of statement is considered actionable because it's an opinion that suggests it's supported by hidden facts. Facts that the speaker knows, but the audience doesn't. This is what Drake was trying to imply, right? When Kendrick rapped, "The rabbit hole is still deep, I could go further, I promise." Mixed opinion carries the implied message that the speaker possesses specific damaging information that backs up their statements about the target of their remarks. Whether a particular statement qualifies as mixed opinion is a question of law for the court, not a dispute for a jury, aka the judge makes this call, not the jury. To decide, the courts are going to look at the full context of the communication and the circumstances surrounding it and ask whether an ordinary, reasonable listener would understand the speaker's words as implying undisclosed facts that justify their opinion. The same type of context that shows the lyrics in Not Like Us aren't stating actual facts also shows that they don't suggest there are secret facts behind them either. When a statement is made in a setting where people expect insults, intense language, or exaggeration, like a rap battle, the courts say it's not reasonable to believe that the speaker is secretly relying on some kind of hidden proof. In this case, no reasonable person would think that Kendrick Lamar had private, credible evidence proving that Drake is a PDF. Drake argues that some lyrics make it sound like Kendrick is hinting at undisclosed evidence, but that argument doesn't hold up. Drake first points to the lyric, "Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young." They say this line means that Kendrick heard from outside sources that Drake is a PDF, but this ignores the bigger picture. That line is actually a response to Drake's earlier song, Tailor Made, where Drake raps, "Talk about Drake liking young girls, heard it on the Button podcast, it's gotta be true." So Drake was basically daring Kendrick to bring up rumors that already publicly existed. Kendrick's response mirrors that dare, rather than claiming he has new or secret information. This is a lot like what happened in a different lawsuit, Terrain versus Liu, where the Second Circuit said calling someone a PDF during a heated on-air fight was just opinion, not a factual statement, because it was part of a war of words and not backed by real evidence. Then Drake points to another line, "The rabbit hole is still deep, I can go further, I promise." And they argue that this sounds like Kendrick is saying he has specific evidence to support his accusations. But that's not the most natural way to read that lyric. And even if someone could twist it to mean that when taken alone, no reasonable listener would believe it once they hear it in the larger context of the rap battle. Both Kendrick and Drake used similar threatening and dramatic language throughout the diss tracks, like, "Don't tell no lie about me and I won't tell the truth about you," or "Your darkest secrets are coming to light," or "I've been in this industry 12 years, I'm gonna tell you one little secret. It's weird stuff going on, and some of these artists are here to police it. And I got your effing lines tapped, I'm dialed in. What about the bones we dug up in that excavation?" This kind of over-the-top threatening language is common in rap diss tracks. It's meant to sound intense, not to make listeners believe that the rapper has real proof of criminal activity. And yeah, that whole "rabbit hole is still deeper" line, I would also argue Kendrick wasn't saying that to imply like the rabbit hole of Drake being a PDF can go deeper and he can, unveil some undisclosed information about Drake's criminal past that no one knew about. I think when he said the rabbit hole can go deeper, it's kind of like when he said, "How many stocks do I really have in stock? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 5. He was just implying that this rabbit hole of them dissing each other can go deeper. Kendrick can keep going with the diss tracks, not that he's hiding some sort of information that he can then disclose, right? Drake also claims that this lyric's meaning is disputed and that the court would need important witness testimony to understand it properly. But at the hearing, Drake's lawyer couldn't give the court any other explanation of the rabbit hole lyric. Later, in the Heart Part 6, Drake directly responded to Kendrick's line, rapping, "Only effing with Whitney's, not Millie Bobby Brown's. I never looked twice at a teenager." The court takes official notice that Millie Bobby Brown is a famous actress who publicly said in interviews that she became friends with Drake when she was 14 and he was 32. All this shows Kendrick Lamar wasn't hinting at secret facts. He was referencing public rumors that were already well known. Now remember, Drake was also suing for second-degree harassment. He said that this song caused him to be harassed. But New York law is clear. You can't sue someone in civil court for harassment. Even though this is the rule, Drake tries to bring a harassment claim under New York Penal Law 240-26. This criminal law says harassment happens when someone intends to harass, annoy, or alarm another person and does something repeatedly that seriously annoys or alarms them without any legitimate reason. Drake says, Not Like Us, the song, the video, and the album artwork amount to a call to target Drake, even violently. They also claim that UMG's actions, which they describe as specific and unequivocal threats of violence, made Drake reasonably fear for his safety. But here's the problem. This criminal law doesn't give private people the right to sue. And finally, Drake brings a claim under New York's General Business Law 349, which bans deceptive business practices. This is the whole, botting allegation that UMG used bots on Not Like Us. Drake's legal team claims, quote unquote, on information and belief, that UMG used secret, deceptive marketing tactics to promote Not Like Us. Specifically, they allege UMG secretly paid third parties like streaming platforms and influencers to promote the track, and that UMG allegedly paid NFR Podcast to release content about the song, and UMG supposedly used bots to inflate streams on Spotify, then bragged about fake numbers, and UMG paid at least one radio promoter to push the track using payola on New York radio. But to win this type of claim, Drake would have to show, 1, the deceptive acts targeted consumers, 2, the acts were materially misleading, and 3, Drake would have to show he was harmed as a result. Drake argues that UMG misled the public into thinking Not Like Us was way more popular than it really was, which influenced how people consumed music. UMG responds that these claims are based only on quote-unquote information and belief, which is basically speculation without proof. And that's what I was saying from the beginning, right? All of the bodying accusations that Drake made in his lawsuit weren't backed up by any real sources. Initially, in his first lawsuit from January, he did include the source of a live stream DJ Akademiks had, where this random kid came on as an anonymous person and claimed that he received money from Anthony Soleil to put 30 million fake streams on Not Like Us on its first week of release. However, he showed a screenshot of an LLC that belonged to Anthony Soleil. However, after further investigation, that LLC doesn't even exist. Akademiks also spoke to people at Spotify who claimed that this guy was full of crap. And then Drake, in his amended complaint, aka he redrafted the lawsuit in April, he actually removed that source. And every time he mentioned or tried to, point the finger at UMG to say they used bots, he said it was all off information and belief. Basically, due to rumors and speculation, he had reason to believe they used bots. And he wanted to dig into all these different people on Kendrick's team and at Interscope like Kojo and these higher ups and requested, communication from UMG and Kendrick's team, etc. He needed all that information to try and prove these claims, but he didn't actually bring in any sources when he filed the lawsuit. So the judge says, Drake replies that they don't need certainty at this stage, just plausibility. Courts do allow pleading on information and belief, but only if 1. The facts are under the defendant's control, 2. The belief is backed by real factual information that makes it plausible, and 3. The lawsuit explains what that information is. Drake claims this standard is met by pointing to indirect payments, reports, examples, and prior conduct. At the hearing, they argued that the record-breaking streaming pace, that Not Like Us got 300 million streams in 35 days, proves UMG used manipulative tactics. So basically, his only backup to show that they used bots was that Not Like Us was breaking all these streaming records. Then the judge says, the court disagrees. Drake is mostly relying on tweets and fan comments, and courts have said this kind of evidence isn't reliable. This kind of weak online chatter doesn't give the court a reasonable expectation that discovery will reveal illegal conduct. AKA, in Drake's lawsuit, all he had was a bunch of tweets from fans and different people saying, oh, Kendrick definitely used bots, UMG definitely used bots. He was using that to show, hey, now we have information and belief to think that Kendrick used bots, but there was no actual proof, and the judge is saying that online discussions don't actually hold up in a court of law when you're trying to build out a real case. Even if Drake met the plausibility requirement, the claim still fails because it doesn't show any consumer harm. A consumer is someone buying goods or services for personal use. In this case, someone who's paying for Spotify to stream Not Like Us. Consumer-oriented means conduct that actually harms consumers or the public interest. Drake's lawsuit doesn't say how consumers were actually hurt. It doesn't claim people paid extra for something, bought something they wouldn't have, or got less than they paid for. It's also vague about who the consumers even are and what they bought. Even the allegation about Spotify redirecting search traffic doesn't show any real harm. At most, the lawsuit says UMG tried to make the song look more popular, which isn't enough for an illegal business practices claim. So all in all, after this year-long mess of Drake putting his career on the line to fight his record label over a rap battle that he studied for a living and he lost, the judge concluded that because the lyrics in Not Like Us are opinion, not statements implying secret facts, and that New York law doesn't allow civil harassment lawsuits, and that the illegal business practices claim fails because it's speculative and doesn't show consumer harm, the court grants UMG's motion to dismiss and throw out the case. So to all you OV hoes who are still going to say Kendrick used bots, these are all K-bots, all those stadiums being packed out with 60,000 plus people in them every single night, those are fake people. All the streams are Not Like Us, all the records it broke, those are fake streams. The judge is saying all of those claims are speculative and doesn't show any real proof. And for that reason, Lobbies and Gentlegrams, this case is being thrown in the trash. Now, both Drake and UMG's legal teams have made different statements after hearing that the judge threw out this lawsuit. UMG said, from the outset, this lawsuit was an affront to all artists and their creative expression and never should have seen the light of day. We're pleased with the court's dismissal and look forward to continuing our work successfully promoting Drake's music and investing in his career. AKA, we still own a large portion of Drake's back catalog and we look forward to continue to profit off that even though he made this BS lawsuit that could have compromised creative expression. And that's also something that's crazy, right? Drake thought that this lawsuit would, strip him of that PDF title reveal and make a lot of these dark industry secrets come to light. The only thing that got exposed was the fact that Kendrick is actually in a great contract with UMG, where he left TDE and is now exclusively licensing his music to them, but it's all being released independently through PG Lang. So we discovered that Kendrick is really eating off his music, even though on push-ups, Drake was claiming that, he's getting ripped off by his label. And it also showed when Lucien Grange actually wrote a letter to the judge, he emphasized that UMG owns a large stake of Drake's catalog, which was something that we never had confirmation of beforehand, but now we know that Drake is the real industry puppet, right? So for Drake to have thought this lawsuit would have brought up a bunch of secrets about Kendrick, about UMG, the shady tactics, it really only exposed his secrets and made him look bad on so many different levels. And as for Drake's team, they made a statement saying, "We intend to appeal today's ruling, and we look forward to the Court of Appeals reviewing it," aka Drake's legal team is not done fighting this fight. They're not done trying to compromise freedom of speech over a rap battle that Drake lost, and Drake will continue shoveling money down his lawyers' throats to try and win this thing no matter what. Absolutely insane, but it's a glorious victory for hip-hop and for freedom of speech, creative expression, and Kendrick Lamar. They tried to rig the game. You can't fake influence. So pop a bottle, Aubrey's and Gentlegrams, celebrate. We'll see what the hell is next up for Drake. Hopefully Kendrick Lamar helps us celebrate with some new music. But as always, let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.